I have vague memories of that, but yeah, definitely. I remember when I first came out to the States. Holy shit, it was something else. But
yeah.
I'll tell you one thing that the impression here's a good fond memory I have. I remember when I first came out here, I whipped out my phone and I took a picture of every single Mustang. No joke. I was like, oh, Mustang, oh, it's so cool. And I took a picture of Mustangs because I thought I always watched movies. Nobody has Mustangs down there. And I watched movies, and I always thought that all the Mustangs were like supercars, right? They're like, and I was thinking, holy shit, everybody out here is a millionaire.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck? And then my dad saw me taking pictures, and he started laughing his butt off, and he was like, you realize those are a dime a dozen.
Yeah.
Why the heck are you taking a picture of a Mustang? And I was like, what? Really? Aren't these like supercars? And he's like, no, that's worth about $5,000.
$5,000?
It was like a really cheap one. It was like literally like a 2002. And I was like, these aren't as cool as I remember them looking in the movies, but, you know.
Well, you know, what's interesting is that when I was probably close to, because you were like, were you like 14? How old are you now?
22.
22. I'm 23. You just turned 22 in February?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know how old I was. Shit.
So you're...
I was around 14, probably.
Yeah, no, you're probably 15, because I was 16.
I was probably 15.
But...
It was in the summer.
Yeah, and it was probably late summer. So I was probably about to turn 17. I was getting closer to 17. I was like 16 and a half. So you were 15.
Yeah.
That makes sense. But I remember when I was like probably 13 or like 12 or 13, I watched Transformers, and they had the Camaro, the yellow Camaro that's Bumblebee, and I was like, holy shit, that car's so cool. I want to drive that car someday. And like I spent years and years thinking a Camaro was like the nicest car. Like I didn't know that like, and I knew it like, and I watched rap videos with my cousins. And so when Ace Hood came out with that song like Bugatti, it's funny when you're a kid, you're like highly impressionable. You'll see one nice thing, and suddenly it's like, that's the coolest thing ever. Yeah, it's like you don't know. It's just, it's marketing. And
you don't have nothing to compare it to.
Yeah, so I watched that. I woke up in a Bugatti rap video with my cousin Daniel, and I was like, well, Daniel thinks it's cool. It must be the coolest shit ever. And I watched like something with like probably a Lamborghini in it, and I was like, well, Lamborghinis are cool as shit. And like, but to me, they were all on the same level. Like,
but to be fair, you're getting up there.
Yeah.
Lamborghinis are they're not.
Well, here's the thing.
You're getting into.
I didn't know for like a long time after that a Camaro was cheaper than a Bugatti is what I'm saying. It's like I thought they were all, like in my mind there were three cool cars. There's Lamborghini, there's Camaro, and there's Bugatti. Those are like the three like sports cars I knew about. And then like now after living in Williston with the freaking crazy prices, and seeing like a lot of pizza delivery guys driving Mustangs and Camaros, it's like the pizza delivery car of Williston is the freaking Camaro.
Yeah, I saw somebody delivering a pizza the other day in a Corvette, and it was a nice one
too.
Like,
Corvettes are actually pretty nice.
Yeah, that's their new one. Holy cow, they compete with supercars. Not quite hyper, but they. I saw somebody delivering a pizza, and it was like at least a 2015 Corvette.
Wow!
And I was like a little taken back. I was just like, "Are you like? I want your job."
They're probably like, it's probably their dad's Corvette, and they're probably making a YouTube video.
I don't know what they're like. Seriously, I was just like, do you really afford a 2015 Corvette on Pizza Hut salary? Like, how is that?
It's possible if they financed it.
Well, obviously, I pour me some more of that. Stuff's actually some good shit.
I'm
very impressed.
I've got another bottle at my house. I'm gonna start brewing it again.
I feel bad. I kind of dissed on it because wow, this is good.
Yeah, it kind of tastes like sparkling cider, but it's really good for you.
It's actually like better than sparkling cider, dude. Holy cow.
Yeah, well, sparkling cider is like way too sweet.
So all your foamy stuff on top is full of bugs?
No, it's not bugs. It's a living bacteria. It's a SCOBY. It's SCOBY. It's a symbiotic culture of yeast and bacteria. Bacteria and yeast.
Well, if it's if it's alive and it's tiny, it's a bug.
Oh. Well, then you're full of bugs. All your cells are bugs.
My grandma one time told me that in school. It was actually pretty funny, too. She was giving us a class in science and come up to the lesson about how water is actually full of microbes itself. And microbes that you need, right? It's like the essence of life type thing. And I thought it was pretty interesting. All the girls are obviously grossed out as hell. They're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm never drinking water again." When you see pictures zoomed in of what your water looks like under a microscope and stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I just was like, "What the? Like, that's kind of gross." But I'm almost never drinking a glass of water without flashbacks of that lesson. Like, I'm drinking bugs.
Somebody told me, one of my aunts told me when I was a kid that I was basically covered in bugs. Like, that's the way I don't remember how she explained it, but the way I interpret it was that, Gilbert, you're covered in bugs, but a lot of them are good bugs and you need them to survive. And I'm sure she's talking about like gut bacteria and like there's like, I don't know, I guess there's probably bugs living all over you, like little living things and parasites. And
you got parasites in you. Everybody's got parasites in them.
But yeah, like so many of them, like trillions of them. Yeah. But like in my mind, I was always like, hey, if I get like a strong enough magnifying glass, like a little one that comes in like little science kits, like if I could look close enough at my skin, I'd see like a bunch of little bugs crawling around. And I always was like confused.
Probably would in your hair.
Well, I was always confused when I was a kid because I was like, I don't know, like if I should, because I think she told me like kind of real information, but it wasn't correct information. Like it's true we're all covered in living microorganisms, but I think the way she described it is like if you clean yourself too much, you'll wash off the good bugs. And so like whenever I was in the shower, I would be like, okay, I don't know how much is too much. Like if I scrub my arms and legs too much, like all the good bugs will be. I don't know what the fuck she was on. Honestly, she was a weird aunt. I probably shouldn't say her name, but she was weird.
Yeah, well, don't. What the heck? Yeah, that's a little bit weird now. You know, now I know why you're so dirty as a child.
Well, I mean, were you not?
No, actually, I wasn't. To be honest, Mom made me take 2 showers a day minimum.
Really?
Yeah, every day I couldn't have breakfast before taking a shower, and I couldn't have dinner before taking a shower.
That's too much. So, I think you should just do the dinner thing, but you wake up for breakfast, you're not
Well, it was because I milked too. So
that's true.
I had a milk, and then I came home, so I had to take a shower, and I understood that one. But then I'd go out, go to school, come back, do my chores, and then she'd make me take another shower.
Yeah.
So I had to shower twice a day.
So what's the difference between a supercar and a sports car?
Dude, like, why are you asking me car questions?
Well, you said it's almost a supercar. It's not quite a supercar.
But all I know is, I'm not a car guy, but all I know the difference like between supercars and then hypercars is hypercars are like Bugatti Veyrons. Those are like, you know, the multi-millionaire shit, right? And then you got supercars that are like your Corvette or whatever. They're just the classier but cooler Lamborghini, Ferrari. Those are supercars. And then you got your muscle cars that are like Mustang, Corvette. I don't know why I said that before. Corvette's a muscle car that are like...
A Corvette's technically a muscle car, not a sports car? Or do you...
I'm pretty sure. Like, do not quote me. Probably edit this out because I sound...
No, it's all good. You're saying you don't know.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm not a car guy at all. Truck guy. Ask me truck questions.
What's your favorite truck?
Ford F-150. There we go.
Do you like the ones that go really quick or the ones that haul?
All I know about cars is I like the ones that go vroom. You know what I mean?
Is that the same
Formula?
Is that the same Platinum you had before? Didn't you have like a pure black one?
It was a blue one.
It was a blue one?
Yeah, real dark blue, but yeah, that's the second one I traded in. I hate to say it after I just said that F-150 is my favorite truck, but the thing was a piece of shit and it kept breaking down.
That Platinum was?
Yeah.
How many miles did it have on it?
It had 80,000.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah, it was almost new, dude. But, no, actually, no. I'm sorry. When I traded in, it had 120.
So, okay, so you put 40,000 on it?
Yeah, I put 40,000 on it, but it just started giving me all kinds of issues because it was the first year they came out with like the self-driving deal and all these sensors, but is how it's wired up, and I don't know why. I swear they would do it like this. It just seems retarded. But one of the guys at the Ford were explaining it to me. They wired every single sensor into one brain. So
to one computer? Yeah,
one computer brain, or motherboard, whatever. So when any sensor goes out, it just sends your whole car into whack.
Oh, really?
That's what he was saying. But it's what happened. Like my side sensors, like it has sensors to tell you in blind spot, like a blind spot sensor. Those went out in a rainstorm one time. Yeah. Water got in the back tail light and it caused one of the sensors to go out, and it just was Christmas on my dashboard. Everything was popping up, and I took it over there and they literally unplugged it, dried it, put a new one in, and it was done. It was like it was the quickest fix ever, but it just kept happening. kept happening, and it was just so annoying because I kept having to go to the dealer every time a little sensor went out. The stupid moonroofs are such a joke. They're such a piece on any vehicle, though. They're always giving out. My moonroof gave out twice. My running boards gave out. It was just little things like that.
They basically have to deploy.
Yeah, but we are in North Dakota where there's a shitload of mud and salt and all kinds of...
freezes and nothing works.
Yeah, it freezes and nothing works.
Dude, last winter,
I
was trying to get out of here, and my truck literally would not start for a week fucking straight, and I could not figure out why. And it really just came down to it.
Just from it's cold?
It's just too cold. Changed the battery. And the thing is, I don't know what exactly was causing it to not start, because I changed the spark plugs, I changed the battery, I changed the air filter, I did a bunch of different stuff, like trying, and I'm sure there's other things I could have done, but basically every time I wanted to start my truck, I'd have to go get a freaking one of those propane tanks and a weed burner.
Oh my gosh.
I'd literally stick a weed burner under my truck for like 15 minutes.
That's not good.
Because I wouldn't put it on the truck itself, I just put it under the truck, and then I'd put like big blankets, like big freaking like tarps, quilts, basically. A couple big quilts over my head just to trap in the heat, and I would just sit there and let the heat rise up off the weed burner.
Did it work?
Yeah. That's how I had to start my truck every day for a week.
Holy shit. You can just buy like engine block heaters and plug them in, right?
I don't know how that works.
Set up like engine block heaters all around your vehicle, they tell you, and then you just plug it in. And
I'm not sure exactly if that probably would have fixed it, because the warming it up is what caused it to work. But I've never had that problem, and I've had this truck for up here for 3 winters now.
I don't know. Yeah, there was all other problem. I'll tell you another. My turbo blew twice, which is freaking horrible.
Twice? That's expensive too. How much is a new turbo?
Well, I had it under warranty, but and I didn't blow it the first time. It came blown, right? They sold it to me blown, and so I went, and what's funny is they tell me, we barely looked at it. It doesn't have a blown turbo. As soon as I took it for a test drive, I was like, hey, it sounds like the turbo's whistling. Sounds like, yeah, it has a blown turbo. And they're like, made me feel like I'm an idiot for asking, because they're like, our best techs looked at this and, they fixed everything. They go from top to bottom. You can't question it's Ford. And
that's
I was like, hey, I know. So I was like, hey, whatever, sounds good. And I was like, hey, can I test it for a little longer, whatever? Just take it on test drive. And they're like, yeah, without the inspector. Or the salesman, without the salesman, he jumped in. I swear I'm getting tongue-tied here, but I left the salesman there, and I told him I was just going to take it for 10 minutes, right? Mm-hmm. So he was like, hey, sounds good. So I drove it to Daniel. Daniel's a really good mechanic.
Yeah, Daniel's one of the best up there.
And I took it to him, and I just showed it to him and let him jump in it for a little minute, and immediately, you got a blown turbo, dude. So I take it back to them, and I'm like, hey, it has a blown turbo. I'm not buying it with a blown turbo. And they're like, hey, we promise it's not a blown turbo again. Just like if you buy it and you wind up with problems down the road, hit us up. So I was just like, hey, whatever. At this point, screw these guys. I'll just buy it and then immediately make a phone call, which is what I did, and it did work out.
Oh, it did.
Yeah. So I bought it, and then I immediately called them a week later and said, I blew a turbo. Don't you guys cover your warranty? And I talked to a different guy this time, not the same one.
Yeah.
And they're like, they went and they checked it out. And no, I'm sorry. They literally said, no. We inspected that vehicle. It's good. And I said, listen, I think it has a blown turbo. I want you to check to see if it does. Mm-hmm. And if it ends up not having a blown turbo, I'll pay for it. Mm-hmm. So they're like, okay. So they bring it in there, and sure enough, it has a blown turbo. And they were all apologetic about it, and they fix it for me. And then I blew it out right before I bought this one. Mm-hmm. I blew the turbo blew again. So
was it still under warranty?
No, it wasn't. It was. I had to pay for it, but it wasn't even the turbo. It's actually a funny story. My first turbo I ever replaced, but it was it was losing pressure for sure in my turbos. I could feel it. So I go and I start watching all kinds of YouTube videos about how to replace a turbo and shit, right, and figure it out because I had to do it. So we're over there in Utah, in the middle of nowhere, and I order a turbo and I start taking it all apart, and what happens is when a turbo overheats, they have 4 like lugs, right? They have 4 lugs that attach it. Mm-hmm. Well, sometimes the bottom leftmost lug on the passenger side, they literally know it's a problem with all these turbos. Mm-hmm. It always snaps, right?
Because it overheats.
It overheats, and that one has the most tension on it, so it snaps. So whatever the case is the first video or the first couple videos I watched, they're like, yeah, if it's leaking pressure or whatever, you're better just replace the whole turbo. This is how you do it all, yada yada. So I just start, right, and I take it all apart.
How was getting that stud out?
It was hard as hell, but here's the story. So I tear it all apart, and in the process of tearing it apart, I snap another stud, tearing it apart. So I take it off, or I was trying to, and I'm trying to save my manifold on there by drilling out the studs, and I accidentally drill all the way through my manifold.
Oh my God. Into your engine block?
Well, not into it's a little pipe that comes off where your turbo attaches, right?
Yeah.
So I take off the manifold too.
Oh, because your exhaust manifold is into your engine block.
Yeah, it's into your engine block.
Turbo's
exactly.
Okay.
So I take off the manifold, and that's not even that expensive. It was like $90, but I pull it off, and then I'm watching another one now about how to replace my manifold properly and do a good job. And then the guy's like, yeah, if you're in this situation, and he literally, the way he shows his video of his truck and the way he was telling was my exact problem. Like, he jumps in, he had a Ford F-150 2015 Platinum.
Yeah.
It was identical in every way, right? And he jumps in, and the sound, he lets you hear the sound as he's driving it and everything, and he's like, and I was like, that is exactly what my truck sounds like. Then he's like, and if it sounded like that, what you want to do is you want to look under here, and you'll see this bottom leftmost lug. It's just snapped. All you got to do is retap this, and you're done. And I was like, so it wasn't actually even my turbo that was the beginning problem. It was that lug was snapped, and I could have just drilled just that one lug out and then retapped it, and I would have, or put a new one in, and I would have been good. But instead, I had to screw up my whole life by thinking it was the turbo. I took off the whole turbo, snapped a different bolt trying to take it off, and then that bolt is the one that I drilled all the way through, and then screwed up my manifold. And then I had to replace the manifold, and then I could have even just reused my old turbo, but I already had a new turbo, so I put it on. It was just such a joke. So what would have been a $20 fix turned into an $800 fix.
Oh, $800 is all it cost for the turbo?
For the turbo and the manifold.
That's not bad at all, because I think I have a turbo right now on my EcoBoost.
Well, I have an extra turbo.
I don't know if it's compatible. If it is, I'll take it. But
if it's a 3.5, it is.
Yeah, it's a 3.5. Well, hell
3.5 EcoBoost.
The same thing, it's funny, the same thing happened to me. I bought a semi. I bought a Peterbilt 379 from these guys there in Killdeer. And they sell me this truck. They give me a pretty good deal on it. I didn't even barter down with the guy. The guy said, I asked the guy what his price was. He's like, $27K. And I was like, all right, I'll do it. I'll buy it. Didn't even ask him for a discount. Nothing.
Why?
I don't know. It just kind of felt, because sometimes I feel like you're negotiating with people, and it just feels like just the way he treated me, because he was actually a real nice guy. I liked him, and he showed me around all his trucks, and he had like freaking 30 trucks for sale. It was like right after, it was the summer of 2020, so it was when everyone was going bankrupt and people were needing to, and he told me straight up, he's like, we need to sell some equipment. We need to get rid of some of this equipment, basically. Like, we have, we're trying to pay
$27K is what you paid for your truck?
20 for that Peter. Well, that's what I paid originally for it. That was my initial investment. But he sold it to me, and I checked everything on it. Like, I was really getting into mechanicking at that point. I was like, really just, because my first truck, I just test drove it, and I was like, seems nice to me. Nothing seems to be leaking. Let's go. Didn't test nothing. Didn't do anything to it. And I got lucky. It was a good truck. The guy that sold it to me was an honest guy. But that first Freightliner I bought, just drove it one time and was like, I don't know what I'm doing, but seems like it works. And I didn't know anything about trucks. The Peterbilt, I actually did really good due diligence on, and I really checked everything out. The one thing, I don't know why, but it completely slipped my mind, was to check the coolant reservoir. So we drive it. He goes and shows me all his trucks. He spends a couple hours with me, and I look at a bunch of different trucks. Yeah. And then we're walking out, and I've looked at so many trucks. Is this from
that one company that went out of business?
No.
What are they called again?
Bach and Diesel. Well, I don't, to this day, I'm not entirely certain, but it was basically Bach and Diesel is like a mechanic shop down there in Killdeer. Yeah. But they're somehow tied to, like, they do all the work for Bell Energy.
Yeah, that's exactly what also Top Bell. That was the name.
Yeah, so Bell Energy is like partnered. I don't know if they're partnered with or own Bach and Diesel. And then the guy that manages it all, that like is a part owner at all.
I went with David to that lot and checked out a whole bunch of trucks.
Oh, really? When'd you go?
Well, it was like 2 years ago or a year ago.
In 2020? Yeah, when they had like a ton of equipment out there. They had all those brand new T880s. Yeah. So they bought.
They had all kinds. They had Peterbilts. Mostly, they had a crap load of those Kenworth T800s.
Yeah.
But they had quite a few Peterbilts out there, and they had. I don't think they hardly. I think they had 1 or 2 Freightliners.
Yeah.
But there was very few, and then they had a whole crap load.
They had the whole row in the front on the highway.
Yeah, it was them.
So I was there. I feel like
when they
yeah. I'm not a big. I like Bell Energy, the guys that run that, but Lock and Diesel, I will never go there again. I don't know if I just had like a once in a lifetime bad experience, but it was such a joke dealing with those guys. The guy that sold it to me was nice. The actual shop that did the work on it was were just garbage, just terrible. But basically, what happened in a nutshell is I asked him, I'm like, hey, you showed me a ton of trucks today. He asked me what my budget was. He asked me, he's like, well, because I asked him, like, hey, show me these trucks. And he's like, oh, well, I'll sell you one of these trucks for $45,000. It was one of the T800s. And he's like, and then he showed me. I'm like, what about those T800s that you guys just got? He's like, well, I'm actually trying to sell a couple of them, but I want at least $100K because they're like 1 or 2 years old T880s. And he's like, well, I want $100K for those. And I was like, well, show me those ones over here. So he showed me all these trucks, and he asked me like twice, like, what's your budget? And I didn't want to tell him a number and then have him find the magical truck that costs that number. So I was like, honestly, I don't have a specific budget. I had like $100,000 saved up in cash at that point. Somewhere thereabouts. I probably had like $100,000, and but I wanted to spend like in the $20,000 to $25,000 range. And I'm like, out of this whole row out here, out of all these trucks, if you were in my shoes and you were an owner-operator with one truck and you wanted a second truck, which one would you buy? So he points to this purple Peterbilt. He's like, I'd buy that truck right there. Has a pusher axle, has a really good wet kit on it, 40K rears, which isn't like the besters, but it's decent. But basically, we go test drive this truck, runs great. He's like, this has a brand new rebuild. We did a gold rebuild on this 19,000 miles ago. Blah, 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 blah. And I check it out, and it's good, and it has some exterior damage. It needed like a new bumper. It needed some work, but it was like in good shape. The one thing, and so finally I'm like, hey, I'll take this truck. And the one thing I did not check on the truck was the coolant. So we shake on it. I'm like, I'll get the money. I'll bring it back to you tomorrow. I'll show up tomorrow with the cash, get the title ready, and I'll take it. And then as I put the truck back, he walks off somewhere, and I'm like, I forgot to check the coolant on this thing. I open the coolant, and all this coolant comes bubbling out. And I'm like, that's not good. There's pressure in the coolant reservoir. Like, that's not normal. So I tell him, I'm like, hey, there's pressure in the coolant reservoir. I just noticed this. Normally that's a sign that it has a bad head gasket, like if you're getting shit in there. So he's like, oh, I'll get my mechanic to check it out. Gets his mechanic out there, puts a pressure gauge on it, and the pressure's like sitting right there at 6 pounds. It's not going up. And I'm like, are you sure? Like, why else would coolant come bubbling out? Pretty sure it's a bad head gasket. And he's like, oh, I'm sure it's fine. And I'm like, okay, I'm whatever. So I leave, come back the next day with the money, and I drive it one more time, and I'm driving it around. I already gave him the money, got the title and everything for it, and I'm driving it around. Right before I leave, I check the coolant again. It comes bubbling out, and I'm like, hey, dude, I'm pretty sure this thing has a blown head gasket. He's like, no, there's no possible way it has a bad head gasket. It barely got a gold rebuild, which is like the cat. Yeah. The cat has like the highest rebuild package is like the platinum. The gold is like a step down from it, where the gold has everything, brand new everything, except for I think turbos and something else. And the platinum has like new turbos, new everything. But he sells it to me and he's like, hey, look, he's like, it doesn't have a blown head gasket. I'm like, but what if it does? And he's like, if it does, then we'll figure something out. Call me up if it has a blown head gasket. I'm like, okay, fine. So I take it back into town. I drive it for a shift. I notice on my very first shift, it blows a little bit of coolant out the freaking, like the overflow line on top of the reservoir. It blows some out. And I'm doing the bottle test. I'm putting up the bottle, and it's like having sporadic bubbles come out. And like sometimes bubbles will come out, sometimes it won't. Normally, if you have bubbles blowing out that overfill line, and he's like, oh, and I called him up. I'm like, hey, I got bubbles coming out. I got a little bit of coolant on the ground. I've never seen this on a truck unless it had a blown head gasket. But I wasn't using any coolant either. It's very weird. So I go and I literally racked my brain on this thing for like a week trying to figure out what's going on. I bought that special fluid that when the bubbles blow into it, it'll change it a different color if it detects hydrocarbon gases. And anyways, I basically had to twist this guy's arm. He finally takes it back. He's like, we're pretty sure nothing's wrong with it. we checked it for bubbles, and I left it there for like a month. And a month later, the guy still hadn't got back to me if it had a blown head gasket. And he's like, and he kind of got fresher. He's like, well, what do you want us to do? I'm like, just take it apart, see if it has a blown head gasket. If it doesn't, I'll pay for it, but I think it does. Lo and behold, they take it apart, and they send it off to Wallwork to get pressure tests. I had a cracked head. And I'm like, seriously, dude? Like, you're sitting here trying to convince me it doesn't have a bad head gasket and had a cracked head. But same thing, and he ended up doing the work, putting a new freaking head on there.
But did he pay for it?
He didn't. He paid for half of it. It ended up costing him $10,000, and I paid $5,000 and he paid $5,000. And it wasn't the best deal ever. I ended up paying $32,000 for it out the gate, and then I had to put new tires on it, did new brakes on it. I broke both differentials the first month.
Well, don't beat yourself up too bad. Did I ever tell you how my Freightliner story ended up?
I know. It's still parked over.
No, I sold it.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
What happened to
Well,
it? Let me finish telling you about this truck real quick.
Okay.
Dude, I had to put new tires on it, mostly new brakes, and I finally get this thing in tip-top condition, spend all this time, put a new bumper on it, like a brand new Herd bumper, like do all this work to it. I'm into this truck at this point, probably like $34,000 maybe. And maybe more than that with the new tires, I can't remember. And then after I finally get it all going, I spent months because it was in their shop for like a month and a half. And then I finally get it going, and literally within like 4 or 5 days of driving it, I have a new driver out there that I'm training in, and it literally breaks both fucking differentials going up a hill. I'm driving up a hill fully loaded.
What?
I start spinning out, and it's just like crunch, crunch, and like my freaking literally broke both my diffs and my axles. Like all at once. I took it in. I ended up rebuilding my own diff, so it wasn't that expensive, but it did cost me like a bunch of time. But yeah, that truck was kind of a cluster. So when all was said and done, what I was into that truck cash before I really even started making money on it was probably like, I want to say it was like around 40, 45 grand.
Well, if you still have it today, it's.
I still have it now, and it's a damn nice truck.
Okay, well, it's not.
Like,
I mean,
now
that's still not a bad investment. You know, when you have a fully rebuilt vehicle.
Yeah.
For 45. What I did with mine is, you know, I paid 35 for mine, right? I paid 35.
35 for that Freightliner.
For my Freightliner and the tank. I paid 35 for them both.
How big was that tanker?
It was 165.
Did you get that from
Willow?
Willow?
Yeah, I got it from Willow.
Okay.
But I bought both of them, right, for 35, and then I only drove it for 3 weeks. I drove it for 3 weeks. I made like maybe 12, 15 grand profit after all said and done in those 3 weeks, because I was fixing shit. I had to redo the pump on it, and then I only had a couple little things. I redid the pump. I had to redo the door on it, and then I redid what else did I do? Shit, I only did a couple little tiny things on it, but anyways, it was about 6 grand of what I made that I had to redump in the truck, plus my diesel, plus whatever, in those 3 weeks, and then getting up and going. Oh, there was $6,000 in insurance to start my insurance, and then that was the other cost.
What was wrong with your pump? What did you have on there before?
It was just it was a wet kit. But it was just super, super shitty. It was in the middle of summer, and the oil was super thin. I couldn't get a thick enough oil, and it would not build past 15 psi of suction. It was so slow.
No, those wet kits are such a mess, dude. I've had so many problems.
Yeah, it was leaking hydraulics. It was bad, dude. Everywhere I go. In fact, I almost got kicked off, and then plus I didn't even get really consistent work because I'm on the back burner since I'm driving my own truck for David and them, right? I'm on the very back burner, and they would just give me all their service jobs and shit, right? Well, I go out there, and my wet kit starts leaking all over the floor. It's considered a spill. It leaked like a quart of hydraulic oil, and David's like, you have to get that fixed. I ain't putting you out there. So I spent like another week ordering a pump and just whatever, all this shit, put it on, and anyways, it was a menagerie. But point being is I finally get it all fixed up, and I got back out into the field, and I drove for like 1 week, and then that whole deal with my family happened, right?
Oh, okay.
And the massacre. But I left, and I went down to Mexico, obviously, and I didn't come back up here. Shit, I didn't come up here for, it was almost about 7 months, 8 months.
Were you down in Mexico the whole time?
No, I was there, and then Arizona, and then Utah. Like, my family was just kind of moving around for a long time. but I was just kind of being with him through it all. So I was gone for like 8 months, and I didn't even want to work, dude. It was kind of crazy. It was like, obviously, you kind of just give up on shit. But I was just drifting for a little while there, and I finally was like, whatever, like life goes on. You got to get back to work, kind of, at some point.
I think I called you right around that point, and you were telling me that you're going to come up here and put it back to work.
Yeah, I was thinking about it, but I swear I came up here and I just, for the life of me, dude, I think after that I honestly can't get in a semi again. I jumped in a semi for 2 weeks, and I was almost like just going crazy. I just could not be by myself and just couldn't drive, and I was just like, oh, I can't take this no more. Like, it's just so bad.
Oh, it's too bad.
So
bro.
I stopped driving, and I just put it up for sale. And
it stayed up for sale for the next 2 years.
It did. It stayed up for sale forever. And
dude,
then finally recently...
That little ad on Facebook was like an old friend. Like, every time I got on Wilson Marketplace, it'd be the first thing that pops up there. Like, oh, there's this little frame.
I paid money to have it advertised.
Well, it advertised to me. You paid at least $5.
I got a lot of hits on it, is what's funny, but it's nobody took it serious. Like, they'd all ask all these questions, act all interested. I had a couple guys go check it out, and then they just bailed.
To be fair, you tried marketing it the summer of 2020, right?
I think so.
Yeah, that was the worst time to sell anything.
Yeah, I know it was. That's what everyone was telling me. They're like, oh, you're better off just holding on to it. But I was like, I know I'm never going to drive this again. And at this point, I just want to get a little bit of money out of it, call it even. Hopefully, I break even on it and call it a day. I didn't, though. But long story short, I sold the thing for $8,000.
Okay, that ain't even bad though for what it was.
But here's the downside, right? So I know for a fact I had the title and the registration and everything inside the one of the cubbies, the glove box, right? Mm-hmm. I know that for a fact because I got pulled over and I've used it and I put it right there.
Yeah.
Unless somebody jumped in there and stole it while I was away, which I doubt because they never hauled off with it. Why would they just want just the title? But the guy comes over, he checks it out, he likes it. He tells me we make a deal, $8,000 on just the semi. He doesn't want the tank. And I was like, hey, no big deal, well, I'll sell it to you for $8,000. I honestly wanted to get 10 minimum out of it, but I was like, call it a loss. Mm-hmm. So I sell it to him for $8,000, and he cannot find the title. I was down in Utah though at the time, right? Mm-hmm. And he's up here trying to buy it, and he's like, hey, I can't find the title anywhere. So I call Jacob up. Jacob can't find the title in it either, and I'm just like, I don't know if you guys are even like really looking because I know it's in there. But he's like, no, I looked, I couldn't find it. Like, what are you gonna do? So I tell this guy, hey, just give me half the money, give me $4,000, take it, and then I'll figure out the title when I get back up there. I'll go and what's it called? You go to the DMV and you get a new reapply for a title.
It's not that hard.
Yeah, I was like, I'll just go reapply for a title, and then I'll mail you the title. When you have the title, you send me the other $4,000. And he's like, hey, that sounds good to me. So he takes it, and I come back up here, and then I realized that when I bought it from Willow, he never even signed it in my name.
Really?
Yeah. So it was just such a cluster. So now when I come up here, I didn't even realize that, but I come up here and I'm like, okay, well now to figure out the title, I have to have William come and reapply for a title.
Does William live up here anymore?
No, he's been in Mexico ever since.
Oh.
And I call him up, and he's like, oh, yeah, like, I paid money for it, so I expect him to sign it over to me. Like, that's the least you could do, dude.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, I'll figure it out when I get up there, but he hasn't been up there here in 8 months. So I was like, well, when you coming? Oh, I might be up there in a month or two. So I was like, cool. But he hasn't ever been up here, and I don't think it'll ever happen. So long story short, I bought a semi and a tank for $35,000. Uh-huh. My tank's just going to waste up there, absolutely going to waste. Uh-huh. And then I sold my semi for $4,000. So I took a.
Trust me, I swear. Every time you tell me one of these stories, I have like a worse story. Like even with the F-150
I walked on the moon.
Even with the F-150 one, I didn't even tell you about all the shit I broke trying to fix my F-150 last winter. But no, literally, it's funny. The same kind of shit happens to me too. I bought that tanker. I bought that new tanker out of Mexico. Yeah. That was kind of a clusterfuck too.
But you already told me about that.
I bought that, paid like after I paid like $52.
You ordered one brand new from the Mennonites, didn't you?
Brand new, not from the Mennonites, from Cam Trailers.
He gets them from the Mennonites.
Oh, does he?
That's what I thought. That's what David was saying.
They didn't know. They're not made by Mennonites. They're made by Mexicans.
No.
You're thinking
German
about the Moss tankers. The Moss tankers are made by the Mennonites.
Yeah.
The Cam trailers are made by some Mexicans.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that's what they. Because I asked Jacob the same thing. I'm like, are these made by the Mennonites too? And he's like, no, these aren't made by the Mennonites.
You'd rather them made by them. They make some quality shit.
Well, not really, because every single one of those Moss tankers cracked like the first week they're up there. They had no end of problems with those Moss tankers,
really?
But the Mennonites stood behind their warranties. Problem with the cam tankers, he sold me the tanker, promised me the sun, the moon, and stars. I hand this guy $50,000, or not 55. Or I handed him like $52,000 cash, and
You say cash? Was it cash or check?
Same thing, dude.
Oh, okay.
It wasn't. I didn't finance.
I'm just picturing you right now pulling up with a briefcase or some shit,
just throw it out the window,
throwing out money out the window.
No,
like here. Hook
to this
me up.
day, I don't even have the freaking title in my name for it.
Ow.
It's in your relative's name.
Jacob.
Yeah.
Ow.
I'm still trying to figure it out. Which they actually, that's kind of an exaggeration. That's actually an exaggeration. I take that back. Jacob actually figured it out. Jacob came through with me, and he actually sent it off to Maine and did some titling and did all this shit to it. And actually, I do have the title, but it's not in my name, and I still haven't registered it in my name.
Yikes!
But it took me like 9 months to get the title. But yeah, I feel bad that cut off, but I actually feel like that is a really important point that you've made, because at the end of the day, where humanity is right now in terms of like quality of life and like what we can do and like just how far we've progressed, it's nuts, you know. Back like literally even 50 years ago, 60 years ago, if you got freaking cut with a nail or something, you could die of tetanus. Very easily.
You'd have to worry about infection and
100
shit.
years ago,
now hydroperoxide's in every single home, and you just spray some on it real quick, and you're good to go.
You get the cold, or you get like a cold or something, a common cold, and it could kill you like very easily because people just didn't have the right sanitation, they didn't have the right heating, they didn't have the right food. And people will just die, and now people are saying, oh, we're killing the earth and blah, blah, which is true to a degree. Like, we are polluting the shit out of a lot of things. Like, it's actually crazy how much pollution's out there. Like, I don't even look into it because it's like, it's so devastating.
I want to market on that pollution with all these liberals. Like, if you can't beat them, join them. You know what I mean?
Well, it'd be the thing to get into. I just don't know how to get into it.
I always I love scuba diving, right? Mm-hmm. Scuba diving is like one of my favorite things to do. And I was telling Philip the other day, I watched this one kid who's basically living my dream life, but he gets funded on GoFundMe. Mm-hmm. Started a GoFundMe to bring back the coral reefs because a lot of coral reefs are dying, and everybody's funding them to go and put. You can make a coral reef out of just about anything. Throw an old beat up car down there, and then eventually it rusts and coral just builds up on it. Right? They like that shit. So he makes artificial coral reefs, and he just travels around the world, dude. Him and he's a young buck too. He's like 22, 23, and he just travels all around the world and makes these coral reefs.
What does he make them out? Just anything?
Out of anything. You can make them out of trash, dude. You can make them like obviously not plastic, but you can make them out of just any old thing, like an old airplane. You can throw an old airplane in there, and it'll become a coral reef, an old boat. Yeah. Basically anything, and then he gets plants and stuff and moves them there to like speed it up, and but I just thought it was really cool.
So how is that different than just whatever's already there that they could the
coral reefs will build around anything there, but a lot of it's not. It's just sand. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So obviously you have to have the right climates and stuff, and it's not like I'm a scientist.
He'd take like a sand, like just a random patch of beach, and he'd go drop
some shit
in a convenient place and go plant a bunch of corals and stuff. That's actually really cool.
Just goes drops finds a location. Obviously, I'm sure he has to get a lot of permits for it, but he's helping save the planet, so how hard can it be? Yeah. And then he gets funded for it, and he just goes and gets his boat, drags some old beat-up car out there, drops a beat-up car in there, and then, oh yeah, it's going to be our next coral reef after 20 years. Wow. So I was like, man, I wish I could do that. You know, just go scuba dive around and throw some fish in the water.
When did you get into scuba diving?
I don't know, a couple of years, like 2 years ago, but...
Yeah.
Freaking fun. I've only only went on 2 big trips, but when I do go, it's shit, we go on at least 2 dives a day for a week straight. So
are you scuba certified, or are you? Certified. Are you? Dang, was that pretty hard, or is it pretty easy? You paid somebody in Mexico to get you scuba certified?
It's easy if you love your fingers to go.
How much did you have to pay to get scuba certified?
It was $400.
Are you worried about dying because you didn't take their
classes? they made me take their class too, but I just speeded up. It was actually pretty cool. So we go up, and wasn't even a Mexican guy. He was Italian, but it was down in Cancun, and we go down there, and we asked this guy. We tell him, hey, we need to get certified. We want to go scuba diving and whatnot. And he's like, hey, cool. It's going to be a 4-day deal though. Mm-hmm. It's 4 days to get certified minimum. And I was like, oh shit, we don't have the time for that. We're leaving in 4 days, and we want to go on our own dive. And he's like, well, tough luck. I can't do it. And he wanted like $600 to do it too. And I was like, listen, I got $400 and you got 2 days to certify me. That's what I'm giving you.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, I can't do it. And I was like, you got 2 people here that are trying to get certified. And I was like, that's $800 in 2 days. Can you get it done? And he was like, oh, and he starts arguing with me about whatever, you're not going to get properly trained. It's too much strain on the body, yada, yada. And I was just like, dude, I mean, we've lived in a river. I was like, all my life, I'm an excellent swimmer. I hate to say like, oh, I'm smarter than the average Joe, but it's like I'm no stranger to water. You know what I mean? Been around it my whole life. I'm like, I know it's not as big of a deal as you think. Like I'll take it serious. We'll watch all the videos. We'll take it serious. But I'm a damn good swimmer. And he was like, okay, well, no, I can't do it, whatever. And I was like, hey, well, you're lucky. He was just playing hardball. And as I'm walking out, I was like, well, we can't do it. And I was like, since you won't, I was like, I'm going to go pay somebody else too. And I'm walking out the door. Wait. Okay, I'll do it. 2 days. He's like, but we're going to have to go on 3 dives a day. And I was like, hey, sounds good. Set it up. So we did it.
So when he said it's hard on your body, that's all the nitrogen that
all the nitrogen
accumulates in your blood. Did you get any cramps or pain or
no, not at all
or anything?
Not at all. It wasn't even that hard at all. It's not like they even take you. They got to be extra cautious. They don't want nobody dying on their dill.
Yeah.
But they're so overly cautious that they almost just need to say shit like that in case something does happen. You know what I mean? The first dive we dove was 20 feet, dude.
Yeah.
It was like 20 feet. And then the next dive, we actually ended up going 60 on the next one. But he even told us that we were the fastest learners he's ever seen.
Mm-hmm.
But
who'd you
he
get
felt
certified
confident.
With?
Bryce and them were already certified. Mm-hmm. So that's why we needed 2 days, because they wanted to go on their own. They went down there to go on their own trip.
Yeah.
And then we weren't certified, so we couldn't rent equipment. So they could, but we couldn't. Mm-hmm. And we were like, hey, well, let's just go get certified real quick, postpone it for 2 days, we'll go get certified, and then we'll all go together. And they're like, hey, well, if you can get it done in 2 days, good luck. So we went around asking a bunch of people. This guy was the guy that ended up, deciding to do it. But it was no big deal at all. Like, I was surprised, and it was actually pretty damn easy as far as all like the fundamentals. There is a lot of like cool facts you learn, like how nitrogen builds up, the difference between pressure, the bar pressure when you're diving, the atmosphere.
The bar pressure?
Like, so it's embarrassing to say. I'd have to go look at a chart to even tell you. Obviously, I'm still new, but they have a chart that tells you how many feet deep is equal to 1 atmosphere. So if we're at 1 atmosphere right here, right?
1 G basically, right? Is the G different? G's gravity.
G's
so
like
an atmosphere
gravity.
is like
it's
the pressure coming in.
Exactly, it's atmospheric pressure.
Okay.
So you're at 1 atmosphere pressure or 0. No, you're at 1 here on above the surface. So if you go, I think the first one's at 10 feet. You go at 10 feet, then you're at 2, and then another one's at like 30 feet. You're at 3. And then it just keeps going down. The deeper you go, the quicker the atmosphere builds up, and it's how many per square inch of water is putting pressure on you, right? So the air in your tank, like water has weight, right? And then the air in your tank is condensing. As it goes down, it's condensing, and it's getting smaller and smaller. So the deeper you go, the less air you actually have in your tank to breathe. That's breathable. And then even if you go all the way down and your tank only reads 2 bars, which is just how much air is left in your tank, and then all of a sudden you go up 2 atmospheres, you'll have twice as much pressure in your tank, so you can breathe for longer.
I did not know that.
Yeah, you breathe. You look at it like a little balloon, and then your lungs operate just the same way like a balloon does. If you get a balloon and you bring it under, like at 1 atmosphere, it's so big, but then you bring it under 10 feet, it'll shrink. And then if you doubled your atmosphere, it would go half the size, right? Then if you're down there at, like, let's say 3 atmospheres, and then you take a breath, then your lungs expand again. And then if you go back up while holding that breath, it'll continue to expand and it'll pop your lungs.
That's crazy.
So that's the only thing that you actually really, really need to be cautious about, is knowing that you always continuously have to be breathing to allow your lungs to adjust. Because even going up, and you go up pretty quick, like it's cool because you almost feel like you're in a way flying. You're weightless down there.
Yeah.
I mean, you're completely weightless, and a little flutter of your kick, little flutter just sends you up 5-10 feet and down or whatever.
Dang.
So you got to be careful that you're always breathing and always checking your gauges and making sure that you're not going down too fast. You can only go up like every 10 feet. For every 10 feet is I think they don't want you to excel past 10 feet every 3 seconds, I think is what it is the rule. Is you can't go faster than 10 feet per 3 seconds. So
what about, doesn't the pressure in your ears hurt pretty bad?
You got to equalize. You just equalize as you go down, which is super easy. Obviously, just blow air through your ears. And
because I've always had a problem with that, because I've never scuba dived, but I'll snorkel and I'll go down like 10 feet and it'll hurt my ears real bad. Sometimes I can pop them, but sometimes I can't. But that's like my number one problem. Because my brother Alberto, he can snorkel down, like he can literally go down like 35 feet, like just snorkeling.
I've been there.
Probably deeper. I don't know. I know for sure 35 feet because we go to these hot springs in Utah. I don't know if you've ever been to them, but
yeah, I did go to those.
Yeah,
like
like
go
a
to the
cave
bottom
that goes
of
straight
that.
down. Yeah, and that's like 30 feet, at least 30, 35
Yeah, I went
feet.
down to the bottom of that same one, but it's
I
not
can't.
hard.
I can go down like 15 feet, and it's funny because my ears. I have a really hard time equalizing.
I have to
the pressure.
equalize going down though. A lot of people don't even have to equalize going when they're free diving. They don't have to equalize going that deep.
I have to equalize if I go down more than like literally like
if I'm
7 to 10 feet.
If I'm free diving, I equalize at 10, and then I'm good. I don't know why, but after I equalize after 10 feet, I'm good for the rest of it to dive like 35, 40 feet.
Really?
But when I'm scuba diving, I equalize at every about 10 to 5 feet. I'll equalize. It just, I don't know, it just feels different. Ears start hurting a little bit. You're just sinking real fast, and I'll just keep equalizing just to be sure, because one time I did pop my eardrums.
Shit.
When I was free diving, though, I popped my eardrums at various times, but one time it was really, really bad. Flipping, one of my cousins dunked me, but then he shot me underwater with his feet, and I went down like probably 12 feet, but super, super fast, and it just popped my eardrums, and they ruptured them, and they just water got in my head. It was so bad. I literally had an earache for like 3 days, 4 days, and I was like, I thought I was going to lose my hearing.
Yeah, rupturing your eardrums is actually pretty hard to do. It's surprising it happened because I got an ear infection while I was because I was diving a ton when I was in Austin out on Lake Travis, because it was really clear when we were there and you could swim down and you literally see so many fish. It was actually a great place to go just snorkel around. But I did the same thing. I had an ear infection for like 3 days. I don't think it ruptured my eardrum, but how did you know your eardrum was actually ruptured versus just infected? Like it got water deep in there.
Because it got water inside there, and I could shake my head, and I could feel water inside my head.
And it wouldn't come out when you laid sideways?
Yeah, it did. It would, like a little bit of water would fall out, but not all. Like I could literally shake my head, dude, and I could feel water inside my head.
Maybe mine ruptured too. I don't know, because that's what mine felt like.
It was, well, probably. I don't even know. But ever since then, I've always had, because before that I never even had to equalize at all, like at all, diving 30 feet. But then ever since then, I've had to equalize 5-10 feet, and then it's gotten a lot better. But right after it happened, for the first couple months, I couldn't even go underwater. Like if I even went underwater, water would get in my ears. So it took me a little while, after like probably 5-6 months after that, before I could even dive 10 feet.
Yeah.
But point is, that's not even such a big deal when it comes to scuba diving, because they'll tell you you're supposed to equalize every 5 feet. If you need to equalize sooner, you just equalize sooner. You know what I mean? Like Bryce only has to equalize it like every 15 feet, and I equalize it, like I said, 5-10.
So both times you went scuba diving, did you go down to Cancun?
No, we went to Cancun and then Florida. So we went to Cancun twice and then Florida once.
Which one was cooler?
Florida, for sure.
Really?
Florida was way cooler.
What part of Florida did you go to? What time of year?
Key West.
Key West?
No, was it Key West or was it Key Largo? It's Key Largo. It was Key Largo.
I think I've been there.
Yeah, I went to Key Largo, and it was so flipping much cooler there. Probably could have just been the time of year.
Yeah.
But the water in Cancun was a lot more murky, and the reefs just weren't very colorful. It was like everything was green, just mossy. You got to see some life. Like obviously there was a lot of fish down there. I have tons of videos of it. I'll show you.
Do you have a GoPro?
Yeah, GoPro right down there. There's tons of fish and shit down there, but I felt like it was just harder to see everything really well. Mm-hmm. And then there wasn't as much like rare sea life. You know what I mean? It was like mostly just schools of fish.
Yeah.
And then when we went to Florida, we were seeing just countless eels, a shitload of sea turtles. I mean, a shitload. It was jellyfish season, so there was just sea turtles everywhere. You couldn't even count them.
Did you get stung a lot by the jellyfish?
I got stung twice. It wasn't bad. For like a little ant bite. But there was a crap load of sea turtles. There was the coolest thing that I got to see was a whole school or flock. I don't know. They look like they're flying, so probably a flock. Of those,
I think it's a skull
of those eagle rays. They flap, dude. They flap.
Oh, that's
flap.
amazing.
They flap. They're massive, but there was so flipping many of them, dude. There had to be at least 100, and they just all came by. I looked
How
it
big
up,
are they?
Oh, they were probably about 3-4 feet across.
Holy smokes.
They're pretty big.
That's amazing.
But they were that was an amazing sight to behold. And then we got to see just cooler fish too. Like there was a shitload of what are those super aggressive fish? Barracudas. Tons of barracuda down there.
Barracuda will bite you, won't it?
Yeah, if you're wearing shiny stuff. It got so annoying. They'd follow you, dude. They're like the only things that were down there that like would not swim away from you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they would swim towards you, and they would just keep swimming towards you. It was actually those are the only things that I was a little bit scared of.
Oh, I'd be scared.
We ran into a 6-foot barracuda. It was massive.
How fat are they?
I don't know. They're not very fat. They're kind of just long and skinny looking like things, you know.
8 inches.
Well,
8 inches high.
probably.
So actually, what's interesting is I was looking up. I was looking at this guy. He's like a biologist, and he was making the link, and he believes that the pike that are up here in North Dakota are actually direct descendants of the barracuda. He believes that they all were in the oceans, basically, and he said that at some point, I don't remember how they made it from the oceans to obviously the freshwaters in North Dakota, but obviously, the world was different.
Yeah, like the pike or freshwater barracuda.
Basically. Well, if you look at the anatomy of a pike versus a barracuda, the pike look very similar to barracuda, like in terms of fin structure and the way they're shaped and their teeth and everything.
They got massive teeth, but the pike won't attack you.
Oh, pike? Well, yeah, but
will pike attack you?
Pike will attack. No, pike won't attack you. There's been like 3 or 4 incidents in the world, and it's always probably like, oh, it probably thought you were something else. Yeah. But like kids have been bitten by pike. But barracuda, do they have like the little thin needle teeth, or do they have like big shark teeth?
No, they got pretty good sized teeth.
Okay, because pike have the razor teeth.
Yeah, they got
pretty. And you literally touch them and they completely fuck up your day. It's like touching a cactus almost.
Barracuda have I wouldn't call them like shark sized teeth, but they're pretty.
But they're like more like teeth and less like needles.
A carnivore teeth. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the thing is pike are some of the most aggressive freshwater fish. They obviously don't attack humans, but they'll eat ducks. They'll eat other fish. They'll eat pretty much anything. Like, it's not uncommon to see, like, there's entire Instagram, Facebook pages dedicated to pictures of pike that have choked themselves to death trying to eat something as big as they are. Like you'll find a freaking pike washed up on shore with a freaking bass almost the same size, like shoved down its gullet, and it's just choked to death because it refused to let go, or it couldn't because its teeth are so sharp
that's crazy.
Just can't release.
It was crazy, dude. Bryce swears he saw a manatee. Is that how you say it?
Manatee?
Yeah, he says he saw one, but it was a glimpse of it while he wasn't diving. We were just on the boat after the dive, and he says he saw one jump up and down. I told him he was crazy, but they are there. Like that's like their animal in Key Largo. Like every place has this animal that's like it's famed for.
Yeah,
and
like North Dakota, it's the unwashed trucker.
Yeah,
it's the roughneck.
Yeah,
you'll see him wander in from the wild.
No, it's like in Playa del Carmen over there. It's that whale that super cool, the shark, the whale shark.
Whale sharks are badass.
Yeah, you have a whale shark as their animal there because they get sightings of whale sharks there. So
I like really big, non-aggressive sea animals.
Yeah, like
whale shark, super cool.
Bro, I swear.
Sea turtles, super cool.
It is on my bucket list.
Badass.
It is on my bucket list to dive with a whale shark. Like, I feel like my life would be complete if I could.
My brother Alberto has a GoPro video of him swimming with a whale shark.
No way. He swam with a whale shark?
Yeah. I don't even know where it's probably in Florida, I think. He was in Florida for like a month straight, doing nothing but fishing and
but he was under the water with it?
Yeah, swimming around.
Just snorkeling?
Yeah, I have it. Probably have it on my phone somewhere.
Shit, so that'd be so cool. I really.
It's amazing too. It's like humongous and has all the little white dots on it.
Oh, I want to dive with one of those so bad. I think that'd be so cool.
Whale sharks are sweet. It's crazy though to think that apparently a lot of these sea animals like dolphins. Specifically dolphins, whales, a lot of these sea animals are apparently like very close in intelligence to humans.
Yeah, did you know that a new statistic came out that dolphins are next to the intelligence of man?
Of man?
Of man, yeah. Did you know that?
I didn't know that.
That puts women at third.
Fucked up kid, Cole. I don't know how much I believe those things though. People say that, apparently pigs are like super smart. Like pigs are super fucking intelligent. But I'm like, if they're so intelligent, like why haven't they figured out a way to like communicate with us? You know what I mean?
Oh no, I'm sure nothing's that. But they did say that dolphins are, because there are a bunch of things like dolphins. Oddly enough, are one of the only creatures that have sex for fun, which it's not animalistic behavior. You know what I mean? And then they get high.
Yeah.
For one,
off those little jellyfish.
No, off of.
Or not jelly. Off
pufferfish.
Pufferfish, yeah.
They do a lot of things that exhibit intelligence that isn't in a lot of different animal species. You know what I mean? Like most animals or most birds, if they're flying, it's for a purpose. They don't fly for fun. They only will fly to build a nest, to get food. They're flying they all go off of pure instinct.
Because they don't want to waste calories.
Well, it's just instinct. It's just survival. Yeah. All animals are just surviving. That's all they do. Mm-hmm. But ravens are one of the only birds that actually will fly for fun. They're not doing anything. They just enjoy flying. So, that's a level of intelligence.
Ravens are super smart, though.
Yeah, they are. And that's why I'm saying that's how they gauge that intelligence. I'm not saying I'm sure they're not saying they're down there solving math problems.
A lot of these different. There's a like I think it's either a beluga whale or just an albino whale in Norway. I think it's in Norway. One of these towns, one of these little fisher villages where they have like the
horn.
No, that's a narwhal. No, I'm saying like one of those little fisher villages that like has like a main dock where people go all the time.
Oh, okay.
And there's like this albino whale. I think it's a beluga whale that's so smart, and it'll like sit there and just interact with all the people or whatever. And it's like the little party trick. You can go see it on Facebook. So you go drop your phone in the water, it'll go get it and bring it back to you.
Really?
Yeah, there's like videos of this whale going down, diving down, getting the phone, it'll get it in its like little beak, and it'll hand it to you. You take it from it. Like these things are smart, and they know. Yeah, it's a wild. Well, it's what's the difference between a domesticated and because a cow is domesticated, right?
Yeah. It was born in captivity.
Yeah, not born in captivity, but it's been like bred over years to be tame.
Yeah.
What do you call is it just a tame animal? Tame wild animal?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's wild,
tamed.
In other words.
It's wild. It's been like tamed, obviously, because it interacts with humans like really well.
Well, tamed is somebody trained it and tamed it.
Yeah.
And it didn't. In other words, it's a wild animal.
Yeah, I guess, it's a wild animal. Yeah. But there's a lot of stories of that, of people that, there's like various different wild animals that just exist out there in the ocean that people become friends with. And like, they like.
Except for snakes.
Except for snakes.
Except for snakes.